Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. I'm Reed Cowan. All right, so President-elect Donald Trump became the former president to be convicted of criminal charges in U.S. history. That moment came earlier today during his sentencing hearing for falsifying records related to that hush money payment made to adult film star Stormy Daniels. That happened back in 2016. Take a listen to just some of what the president-elect had to say in court.
I'm totally innocent. I did nothing wrong. They talked about business records, and the business records were extremely accurately counted. I had nothing to do with them. That was done by an accountant or a bookkeeper who I think gave very credible testimony and was corroborated by everybody that was asked. And with all that's happening in our country today, with a city that's burning to the ground, one of our largest, most important cities burning to the ground, with wars that are uncontrollably going on, with all of the problems of inflation and attacks on countries and all of the horrible things that are going on, I got indicted over calling a legal expense a legal expense.
Okay, so let's drill down. We have our teams on the ground covering the fallout from many angles. CBS News political reporter Aaron Navarro is in West Palm Beach with the latest on Trump's movements. But first, we want to get to CBS News political reporter and attorney Katrina Kaufman from outside that New York City courthouse. So the president-elect gave a detailed testimony during that hearing. What else did we hear from him?
Hi, Reed. So this was very interesting. A criminal defendant has the right to speak at their own sentencing. And so Trump took this opportunity after, not testifying during this case, but this was his final chance to speak to the judge. And usually a criminal defendant would show some contrition here, try to explain what happened. Trump was entirely on the defense. He said that it wasn't wrong that these were listed as legal expenses. He called this case an embarrassment. He disparaged a key witness, Michael Cohen. He called this a politically motivated witch hunt, as he has in the past. But it was very striking to get to hear him speak on the final day of this trial at the sentencing and via a virtual appearance, too, which is very, very rare. He was projected on a screen with his main attorney, Todd Blanche, and we were just able to watch them from the courtroom as he made his speech.
So let's talk about the judge, because we know the president-elect talks about the judge quite a bit. Judge Marchand made a big point to distinguish Trump the citizen and Trump the former president during his address to the court. Walk us through the intent of really drawing that distinctive line.
Reed, I thought that was a very striking moment because the judge really emphasized the extraordinariness of the circumstances and of the office. But he made a point to say that it is not the occupant that is extraordinary, which really just felt like a bit of a dig at Donald Trump in that moment. He also talked about the paradox of this trial, how it was surrounded by all of these extraordinary circumstances. A defendant who at the time was a former president is now the incoming president of the new administration. But how behind closed doors, this really just took the shape of a trial as it would for any other defendant. Each side had an opportunity to present their case. There was a jury of ordinary New York citizens, and they got to present a final verdict. And the judge just thought it was so important to preserve that verdict and proclaim a final sentencing just 10 days before Trump is inaugurated into office.
So walk us through. The judge used the term unconditional. So people are going to be hearing about that word specifically during their dinner time headlines. What does it mean in this context? Also, we know, for all intents and purposes, this was just a slap on the wrist, right? It just goes on his record. Still, though, Trump vows to appeal. So tell us about that unconditional use of that word by the judge, and then also why Trump would appeal and what that would look like.
So what an unconditional discharge is it really means there are no terms. There's no imprisonment, there's no probation, there is no fine here. But Trump, this is really the final nail that makes him a convicted felon. And that is what Trump wants to appeal. This is a permanent record. He is the first president of the United States who is a convicted felon who will take the Oval Office. And Trump, while one might say that this is a slap on the wrist. This is still a really grave sentencing. He has been made a felon. He did everything in his power to try to stop this day from happening. Multiple appeals this week, going all the way to the Supreme Court, which was denied. And he will absolutely be trying to expunge this sentence by appealing through the New York court system all the way back to the Supreme Court, because he feels very strongly that he is protected by the presidential immunity ruling that they made over the summer, and that, he has asked the judge to recuse himself. He has tried to say there was juror misconduct here. I think that we are going to see a lot of arguments from him and his team on appeal as he tries to wipe away this conviction ultimately.
Katrina Kaufman, thank you so much for that. Okay, so for our viewers now, we have the opportunity to bring in CBS News' Aaron Navarro. So Trump wasted no time getting on social media, giving a response here. What else are we hearing from the president-elect beyond what he had to say in those fiery statements heard in court today?
Reed, good to be with you. In that social media post you mentioned, Trump referred to the investigation as a, quote, witch hunt, something he has often used when it comes to legal cases against them. He said, quote, the real jury, the American people, have spoken, kind of pointing to the fact that a lot of these investigations, developments in these legal cases were happening in the thick of the 2024 presidential cycle, where President Trump, of course, won. He also referenced to Michael Cohen, his former attorney, as a star witness who was, quote, disbarred and disgraced. And he also mentioned, interestingly enough, that he would appeal this decision. Yes, it is on his permanent record, but he's looking to, at least on paper, potentially get it off, potentially get the Supreme Court involved, indicating that this will not be the last development when it comes to this Manhattan case.
Aaron, also another question. The president-elect still has one remaining legal case that he and his attorneys are looking at. That's in connection to special counsel Jack Smith's investigation into Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election. What's the update there?
A federal appeals court in Atlanta last night said that Jack Smith and the Department of Justice could release that report. Now, Attorney General Merrick Garland has made it clear that only one volume of the special report will be released, and that's the part in regards to the January 6th attacks, as well as Trump's attempts to overturn the 2020 presidential election. The volume of the report regarding classified documents, they've indicated, will not be released as of now, as there's still some legal proceedings regarding that. Now, Trump's attorneys are potentially looking to get the Supreme Court involved in this, and we potentially will see at least one volume of the special counsel's report in at least 3 days. That's the hold that a federal judge here in Florida decided. So we could potentially start seeing those, new findings about the investigation in the weekend or next week.
It's pretty astounding when you think about it. The president-elect of the United States not getting the help of the Supreme Court, a felon, that will now go into his record and be a part of his legacy forever. And on the very same day, he is meeting with members of Congress. Why is he meeting with members of Congress, and what is the marching order he is giving members of Congress as far as the purse strings and forwarding the objectives of the campaign promises that he made in winning the presidency?
Yeah, several notable groups of House Republicans are going to be here in Florida this weekend. Up first is the House Freedom Caucus, a group that ideologically is really in line with Trump, but they have clashed before when it comes to raising the debt ceiling, when it comes to reducing the deficit, reducing government spending, and he will need to make sure that all House Republicans really are on the same page, as there's such a slim margin that Republicans hold in that chamber, as they're looking to get at least one, potentially two bills regarding his, quote, day one agenda when it comes to energy, immigration, the economy, tax cuts. He'll need to make sure that all Republicans are on board if he wants to get those passed and get them to the Senate.
Aaron Navarro reporting live from West Palm Beach. We appreciate. Thank you so much.